Welcome to the Living Artist Podcast. I'm your host, Preston M. Smith. Hey everybody, welcome to the Living Artist Podcast. I'm Preston M. Smith, at PMS Artwork everywhere on internet land and socials. I want to thank you for landing on this podcast. Whether you're a professional artist, just getting started in the art world, a collector of art, or just consider yourself a creative person, this podcast has something for you. I like to think of it as a fun way to rant and talk to other creative people about living the life of an artist, surviving and getting ahead in the art world, and enjoying your life. But most importantly, not waiting until you're dead to make it happen. All right, let's get started. The Living Artist is supported by Filling the Well, a new podcast from Arts Midwest created to nourish, provoke, and inspire artists and art leaders. In this 5-part series, hear from the creative changemakers as they share their takes on how to shift power dynamics, avoid burnout, build authentic community, share resources, and advocate for support. With each episode, you'll find links to explore these ideas further and act in your community. Listen wherever you get your podcasts or check out artsmidwest.org/fillingthewell.
Welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Anna. I created this podcast. I don't know why people think that PMS Artwork is the host, because it's me.
Hello? Who are you? How'd you get in here? Get up out of that chair.
Don't tell me what to do. I will sit here if I want. You're being so basic.
Listen, I'm going to call the cops if you don't get out of this.
Go ahead and call them. It's my house.
Wait, what? This is not your
By the
house.
way, what's he wearing?
What?
It looks so cheap. Are you poor?
All right, just get out of here.
Fine. I don't want to stay here anyway, but you're going to be paying me royalties.
Welcome back to the Living Artist Podcast, brought to you by Inventing Anna, a new series now streaming on Netflix. All right. We're finished with all the shenanigans and tomfoolery. We are back to the actual Living Artist Podcast. And it all makes sense, believe me. Fake it till you make it, baby. We are not sponsored by Netflix, but you'll see why I threw that in there in a minute. We are doing an episode that is inspired by Inventing Anna, which is the one I saw on Netflix. My wife and I are watching it. I think we're almost all the way through. We have one more episode. It's very good, and it is based on this person. I don't want to ruin too much for you. Just watch it if you have Netflix. But it's based on kind of this socialite con artist who basically cons her way all the way up to the social elite and even convinces a bunch of high-end bankers and investment bankers to back her project. Just watch it. It's really good. But the beginning was a tip of the cap to the character of Anna, played by a wonderful actress. You might know her from Ozark, to Julia Garner. She's great, and I know that my accent did not do it justice at all, but hey, I just kind of threw that together. You'll get the gist of it. This person was a con artist anyway, so I don't really need to get my accent 100% perfect. But it's funny because I was watching this, and I always find that I draw inspiration from some of the strangest places and from some of the strangest characters. People you wouldn't automatically think like, oh, this is a person that's inspiring. And the woman that is in this series, which is based on a real person and an alias, Anna Delvey, or Anna Sorokin, I find her fascinating because she constructed this reality in her mind so strongly that I think she even believed 100% that what she was doing was legitimate. And everybody else seemed to believe it. And she convinced all these high-powered, wealth managers and financial institutions and wealthy socialites and people like high up in the New York ladder that she was legit. And I think part of it was just because she believed it so much. She kind of groomed herself to believe so strongly that this was her, to a T. And she sold everybody on it. Now, she has some horrible traits and she did some horrible things too. But that little aspect alone kind of reminded me of the struggles that we have of being an artist. You spend so much of your time convincing people to kind of take you on, or to get in front of people, to get in front of the right people, to get people to also believe in the magic that you see in yourself and take you on as a gallery, or, a residency, or a grant, or you name it. Whatever it is you're trying to do in the art world, you're basically trying to get people to also believe what you believe in yourself. Now, stepping back one step, nobody's going to believe anything about you or your art unless you believe 100% in yourself. That's step one. And you have to be like your own biggest fan. And this reminded me of this character, Anna, because she believed so strongly in her own myth. And you almost have to construct that in your mind as an artist too. You almost have to be unbreakable, unshakable, unbreakable. And other people will see that too. It's almost like, I can't remember which rapper said it. They went into his house and they saw this huge poster of him like in the living room. And they said, why do you have a poster of yourself in the living room? It's like, well, hey, if I'm not a fan of my work, how can I expect anybody else to be? And you know what? It kind of resonated with me a little bit. It's the reason why we artists also, from a practicality standpoint, but just because we love our art, I mean, we hang our stuff in our places. We get it up off the floor in the studio and we hang it in our house and we're proud of it. And hey, we've got to love our own shit before anybody else does. So I draw inspiration from this character in that way. It's like fake it till you make it, but it's like taking it a step further. It's not even faking it for her. She really believes it. Like she would convince herself when things wouldn't go her way, you could see something in her brain would just click over like, oh no, that's not reality now. This is the new reality. And this is what I now believe. She would just kind of like amend something that didn't work out to just kind of fit with her story and then just keep going on because she was just powered by her own self-belief and her own dream. And it really is like being an artist. Why would you go into this field if you want to be a professional artist, if you want to get your work into galleries and museums and want to influence people down the road and maybe even be a household name? Why would you go into this field if you didn't feel beyond a shadow of a doubt that you had what it takes, right? So you can draw inspiration from these. So I highly recommend watching this show, Inventing Anna. Take away all of the horrible traits because she does some horrible things, but it is kind of amazing what you can accomplish when you believe 100% in yourself. So I kind of want to break it down into a couple of the traits that I think she has that you can take something away from that is positive, and then some of the things that she did that I think are obviously horrible things to do, and they were effective for her, but I would not recommend. Oh, and I forgot to mention, this is based on a real person, so look her up, Anna Delvey or Anna Sorokin. It's kind of a fascinating story, and I think some people, it's almost like the Robin Hood story a little bit. Like some people find her as a little bit of a folk hero, you know what I mean? Like she was able to do it. She was able to convince all these people, so good on her. But I have my own reservations about that. But anyway, moving on, the first thing that she does, which we've already kind of touched on, is an unshakable belief in yourself. Constructing some sort of myth or mythology or dream or persona, alter ego, whatever it is that it takes for you to really just believe 100% in the power of yourself as an artist and as a brand to get your work out there. And obviously your work. But in this realm that we're talking about, really selling yourself, it's almost more important to talk about, the brand of your art than the actual quality of your work, because that's what you're really going to be selling to people if you're really going to be climbing up the ladder as an artist. So you got to have this unshakable belief that you were just made to do this. You are meant to do this. Everybody else is going to see your genius or whatever it is. Not genius maybe, but like you're just unquestionable talent as an artist. And that is the first thing that you have to cement in your brain. And I think taking some time to build yourself up and to play that script in your head and to meditate on it and to really just get that to sink into your bones that you have what it takes to be up there. That's really important, which brings me to the second trait that Anna displayed, which is acting and or dressing the part. Now, I'm not saying you have to go out when you approach people and galleries and potential collectors, you have to dress in a tuxedo or something. I'm not saying that. But finding whatever that is that you put on that makes you feel like this is it. I'm my best self. Like this is me putting on almost like my superhero outfit. You know what I mean? Something that latches you in or hooks you into that persona that you have when you're trying to talk yourself up and then selling it to people. It's one thing to just believe in your own house or in your own studio when you're painting or whatever, you're having a glass of wine after you painted something, that your work's great and you visualize, you daydream and you see yourself up there. That's all great. And that's the first step. But getting other people to see that is important too. And that means knowing your shit, knowing what you're talking about, being able to talk about your work, understanding a little bit of the art world, understanding the art market, being able to talk like these people talk and be able to sell yourself and just be unshakable with that too. That's one thing that the character had was whenever somebody questioned her, she was unflinching with it. She just kept the narrative going. And this person was like, well, why would this person be lying about this or faking this? I mean, they know so much about what they're talking about. She's like dressed to the nines and her confidence is through the roof. I mean, that is 80% of it is just that belief, your posture, your confidence, the way you present yourself. That is so important to selling this to people. And I'm not saying you have to sell it like do a song and dance or whatever, or like I know a lot of people, including myself for many years, think, well, the work should speak for itself. Yes, it's important for the work to be extremely strong and speak for itself, but there's a lot of artists out there that are great that their work speaks for itself and they're not doing anything because they don't know how to sell themselves or they don't know how to talk about themselves or they don't know how to present themselves when they get into a gallery or into that kind of a situation. So these things are important. So finding that kind of narrative, learning how to speak about your work, learning how to speak a little bit about the art world is important. And it's a skill that I had to develop as well. And I'm still learning. I still have those moments where my confidence is shaken. And I'm sure we all do. But just kind of like being able to get yourself into that mindset, almost like where you're playing a part, like you're almost doing an improv. This is an improvisation, but you believe it so strongly that nothing can knock you out of this character. I think that's really important, and that is what they're kind of talking about when they say fake it till you make it. But fake it till you make it 10x'd, meaning like know it till you make it. That's even more important, and that's what her character did. Now, spoiler alert, she does get arrested, and I'm not giving anything away. That's in the previews, and that's the beginning of the show. But she does get arrested, so I'm not saying like what she did was amazing in a sense that she's like completely on the level and doing something legal and legitimate. And I'm not saying that you should do anything criminal, obviously. I'm just saying take the essence of what she's doing, that belief in herself, and put that into a little bit of what you're trying to do and what you're trying to sell as an artist. It can only serve you well. Another thing she did very well was presentation, creating an atmosphere where people felt like, oh, this person knows exactly what they're talking about. They're already in this world. They're already in this like milieu. Now, I'm not saying that we can do that as artists if we're starting out. You can't really create an atmosphere of like, oh, I'm in a museum, so come have a party in a museum with all these gallery owners and collectors that I don't know yet. That's not what I'm saying. But you can present yourself online well. You can do a curated social media platform. Your Instagram can be highly curated. It can be very tight. You can know what you're going to say with that, where you're creating an atmosphere where when people come and click on your work or they click on your profile, they go, oh man, this person knows what they're doing. This artist is here to play, and this artist is legit. So that's what I mean by creating kind of that atmosphere. That also goes a long way to getting people to not only believe also what you believe in yourself as an artist, but to buy your work and to take you on in a gallery situation or whatever. So those are some of the things that the character does really well. And one of the things that she does also that I can't stand, that's funny to watch in the show, and it's effective for some people. Like I know Arnold Schwarzenegger, for example, used to talk about doing this kind of stuff when he was a bodybuilder, but it's like psychological warfare. It's like finding a person's weakness and exploiting that. Now, the character Anna uses that as like a power play because she just takes somebody down. She finds their weakness, exposes it, which might be the clothes you wear. That's what I was saying at the beginning. She does that to a character in the show. and probably in real life too. She exposes the clothes and says, are you poor? Like, why are you dressing like that? You need to dress better. You need to carry yourself better. Or she like calls people fat or whatever. She basically gets in their head, and that's psychological warfare. It makes them feel small and therefore makes her feel big. And then it kind of changes the power structure. So this person almost like wants to be in her good graces or like wants to please her in a way. And it's weird how that works. Now, that's something that I don't recommend doing unless you can find a way of doing that in kind of a nice way where it doesn't really affect anybody or doesn't hurt their feelings. I'm not about putting people down for my own gain, for my own personal gain. But, and I don't think anybody listening to this is either. But that's one of the things that the character does effectively that I don't really recommend us doing as artists. So anyway, this was just something that I was inspired by today and this week. I always find inspiration in the weirdest places. Like another show that gives me inspiration is Billions. It's like these billionaires doing some things that are highly questionable, but there's always some aspect of it that I'm really intrigued by or inspired by because they're kind of creating something out of nothing. They're creating some sort of atmosphere just to fulfill some sort of need when it really doesn't exist. And they're playing with like kind of almost invisible numbers and connecting people in weird ways. And there's this strong belief in themselves that makes the whole thing possible in the first place. So I always find a little bit of inspiration from these characters, even if they have other negative traits. You can kind of pick and choose things that you want to be inspired by. Accentuate the positives. You can find inspiration anywhere. And that's what I'm trying to do on a day by day, day to day, week to week, hour to hour, month to month, year to year basis. I'm always trying to find ways to keep myself inspired and think outside the box. Because otherwise you're just falling into a comfort zone and it's really hard to break out of that. And it's hard to get ahead if you're going to be just doing the same old stuff all the time and not pushing yourself. So that's something that I just wanted to share with you all and hope you dug it. Hope you dug it. Hope you dig it. Hope you like it. If you do, I'd love to hear from you on social media. If you haven't had a chance yet to leave me a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts, I would be very grateful. And you can always make a donation at www.pmsartwork.com/podcast to keep the podcast going strong. Unless, of course, you're poor. See? Psychological warfare. Everybody's going to donate now. Just kidding. So anyway, I'm going to leave it at that for today. Have a great and creative week, and we'll see you next time.
I don't have time for this outro.
This has been the Living Artist Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. I just want you to know that I appreciate you being here, and I'm grateful to be in your ears. Your art and creative life on this planet is meaningful, so thank you for sharing it with me. If you like this podcast, whatever platform you're listening to it on, please subscribe and share it with your friends. You can also leave me a positive review to show your support. This helps me to reach more people with the algorithmic magic and keep the show going strong. If you want to see more of what I do and check out the art that I create, you can visit my website at www.pmsartwork.com or follow me on social media everywhere at PMS Artwork. That's it for now. See you back here next time.